Hi, welcome and welcome back. I hope you're doing well. As promised, I wanted to do a part 2 to my video called Should You Confront the Narcissist? And in that video, I talked about what happened in my meeting yesterday, professional meeting, when a covert male narcissist made a special guest appearance at the meeting and stirred up all kinds of chaos and drama and tried to suck me in to get supply. Anyway, that whole thing really went sideways and south pretty quickly and for the back half of the meeting. One of the things that I mentioned as a tip and free game for you is that you can actually save the chat in Zoom. So when you click in the lower right-hand corner on your Zoom chat, you can actually, or near your Zoom chat, you can actually save it to your computer, and I copied and pasted it and printed it out. So I actually have a copy of the Zoom chat from yesterday's meeting, and I highlighted the times when this guy was messaging me and just the progression of the situation. And I wanted to share this with you all as a communication breakdown so that you can heighten your discernment and you can really better identify this kind of behavior and quickly diffuse it. And if possible, even get support in dealing with situations like this, especially if it's a professional situation or a work situation. Really, it could apply to any relationship. This just happened to be a professional meeting. And I know that there are a lot of you that are really frustrated at work because you have narcissists on the job that are waiting to bait you, that are looking for ways to ruffle your feathers or to make you look bad on the job or to withhold information and resources cross-functionally so that you can't get your tasks done. And it's really a shame, but I wanted to share this with you all to really break it down. And for those of you who are new to either my channel or just narcissism and narcissistic abuse in general, I think that it's really good to break down the communication and show the dynamics in interacting with narcissistic and toxic individuals so that you can identify it, navigate it, and heal from it, but also to just squish it. This meeting started at approximately 12 noon, and this guy logged on as a guest at 12:04. So he logs in, and he was greeted warmly in the chat on Zoom. And right off the rip at the guy logs in at 12:04 and introduces himself. And then at 12:05, he is already dictating how he wants the meeting to be conducted, or a part of the meeting to be conducted. He says, "I like table topics in the chat, please." So he's already dictating things out the gate. And that's not how that works. That's not how we do that. And that's not how we did it in yesterday's meeting, but he is already dictating things. Kind of controlling, don't you think? One of the gentlemen in the group, who's a member, says, "Welcome." And I chime in as well, "Welcome." And this guy responds to us, "Hello." And then the meeting gets started, introductions are made, the roles for the meeting and agenda for the meeting are identified and covered. At 12:10, I got asked to evaluate one of my fellow members, and I agreed to do it. I had already been signed up to do it, so I just confirmed that I would do it. My fellow member gave a presentation. And as I got ready to evaluate him, my 13-year-old son came home early from school. And it startled me because I wasn't expecting him at that time, and I wasn't expecting him to come in that way. So I jumped up literally out of my chair, and I looked over, I jumped up, oh my God. And then I turned back, and then I grabbed my notes and I launched into my evaluation of my fellow member. So our guest took issue with me exclaiming, "Oh my God," after my son startled me. Here's how things went down. 12:36, the private messaging started in the Zoom chat. He says to me, "Don't say, oh my God. Say, oh my gosh." Is saying, oh my God, parentheses, OMG, cursing or blasphemy? Clarence L. Haynes Jr. 12:38, blasphemy? Then he writes, "I know it sounds simple, but let's make no assumptions that everyone knows what these words mean, so let's define them. Cursing." Then he quotes James 3:10 and says, "Out of the same mouth come praise and cursing. My brothers and sisters, this should not be." James 3:10. When you think of cursing, you often think of the use of what we call foul language, which includes dropping F-bombs or using four-letter words. In fact, back in the day, there was an expression, cursing like a sailor, which meant a person used a lot of foul language or had a foul mouth. Not to be nostalgic here, but there used to be a time in our society where men didn't curse around women, and if they did, they would say, "Excuse me." There was also a time where children wouldn't dare use foul language around adults, and parents wouldn't use that language around kids. My, how things have changed. I used to work at a major, and then the message trailed off. I think he ran out of text room. This was an entire chat message to me. So then 12:39, I start forwarding messages to the president of the group. I said, "This guy sent me this private message," and then I copied and pasted and sent. And then he hits me up again at 12:39. Blasphemy. Blasphemy is when you slander or speak abusive language against God, when you don't show him the proper reverence that is due his name. It is all a form of blasphemy. There are many instances in the Bible where blasphemy occurs, and what you usually see is a blatant disrespect for God or the things of God. Blasphemy was a very serious offense, punishable by death. Consider this story from Leviticus. Anybody who's ever read Leviticus knows that it is no joke. He quotes Leviticus here. "Now the son of an Israelite mother and an Egyptian father went out among the Israelites, and a fight broke out in the camp between him and an Israelite. The son of the Israelite woman blasphemed the name with a curse, so they brought him to Moses. His mother's name was Shelemith, the daughter of Dibri the Danite. They put him in custody until the will of the Lord should be made clear to them. Then the Lord said to Moses, 'Take the blasphemer outside the camp. All those who heard him are to lay their hands on his head, and the entire assembly is to stone him. Say to the Israelites, anyone who curses there,'" and then it trails off again. I think he ran out of space. So at 12:39, I messaged the president. Pretty ballsy for someone who isn't even showing his face during this meeting. And then 12:40, or actually, he goes back, and after this guy, the guest, goes back to dictating how the meeting should flow. Then at 12:40, I messaged the president again. He seems more interested in schooling me on religion versus participating fully in this meeting as a guest. 12:41, the president messages me. I don't even want to respond to him with my full opinion, ... 12:42, I tell the president, and I haven't responded to him. Not worth my energy, and I would put him on blast to the group, but I don't want to cause problems for the rest of you. Then he goes on, this guy who's the guest, goes on to copy and paste what he had already sent me about blasphemy, and he sends it to me again through the private chat on Zoom. So that's all of this. He resends it to me in the chat. Then he goes back to resending me the bit about say, oh my gosh, or oh my goodness. So then at 12:50, I messaged the president again. I told the president, this fool is still correcting me. And then at 12:51, I messaged the president again, and I say, narcissist. He's trying to trigger a reaction or debate with me. Seems creepy, ... 12:52, the president says to me, is he DMing you? 12:52, I respond, yes. 12:52, the president says, not okay. And then 12:52, I let the president know I've been copying and sending to you. Then at 12:52, I tell the president I'm literally about to put him on blast. Then at 12:53, this guy copies and pastes the whole chunk of messaging about blasphemy, and he sends it to me again in the private chat. That's all of this. He sends it again. At 12:54, I message the PR girl. I say, this guy's a narcissist. He's been DMing me privately this entire time, ... And then I message her again, talking crap, ... And then this guy at 12:55, he messages me again, and he goes back to, oh my gosh, or oh my goodness is okay to say. 12:55, I message the PR girl again, and I say, he's still coming at me in the DMs. And then 12:55, the PR girl messages me back, and she writes, OMG. And then 12:55, the PR girl says, I just turned off the chat. So no more messaging for Mr. Covert Narcissistic Guest. At 12:56, the PR girl asked me, can you save the chat? And that's when I went ahead and clicked through to save the chat to my computer. And then I printed it out later to share with you. What do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages, most of which consist of private messages, long private messages to me from the covert narcissistic male guest at the meeting. Isn't that special? I think it's important to be able to identify this kind of behavior and to spread the word. So share this video with other people, because the more people who are aware of this behavior, because covert narcissism in particular, narcissistic abuse is very insidious anyway, but covert narcissism is particularly insidious. It's very hard to detect, and narcissists tend to operate in the gray area. They tend to kind of flow and move and duck and dodge in between the lines. So you need to be able to read between the lines. Literally, all of this messaging that took place on this Zoom call privately to me was simply because I got startled when my 13-year-old walked into the door. And this is not to get into a religious debate, or I really didn't want to so much focus on that. And I started not to share this because I didn't want that to become the focal point, like debating over this guy, what this guy claimed were his religious beliefs. I did address the group. I said, look, if I offended anybody, I apologize. I have no problem doing that. But this was excessive and just unnecessary. And it's funny, in all that he messaged me, he never once asked, like, what happened? Are you okay? Isn't that interesting? This wasn't about him caring or being concerned or anything like that. This was all about him getting a one-up and tearing me down in the context of this group to boost his own ego. And if he really was concerned about God and about being spiritual and all of that kind of thing, then surely he's read the scriptures that talk about love one another and be patient, bearing with one another in love. Surely he's heard of those, but they're nowhere in this document at all. There are a few things that are happening here that I'd like to point out. One is controlling behavior. Narcissists are very controlling. One of the first things that this guy did when he joined the meeting was dictate how a certain aspect of the meeting should be done. And he's a guest. And it's like, no, we don't do it that way. That's not how that works. Another thing is that narcissists don't know when to quit. They tend to take things too far. And I think that need for supply, that need for reaction, for attention, to really step on me in order to boost himself up, he took it too far. I mean, all of this messaging was just ridiculous and unnecessary. Third thing that I want to point out is that a lot of narcissists will hide behind religion. And if this guy was really concerned with upholding God's standards, then he also would have made reference to, or at least acted like he had read the scriptures that talk about be completely humble and gentle and be patient, bearing with one another in love. And he clearly was not extending that godly courtesy to me. Another thing that I wanted to point out that shows up here is the lack of empathy. Literally, the only reason that those words flew out of my mouth is because I was startled by my son. My son actually apologized to me because he realized that he startled me in the middle of a meeting. And this guy, on the other hand, did not ask me one question about how I was doing or what happened, nor did he express any kind of care or concern for my well-being. But he had no problem just bombing me with all this education about blasphemy and the Bible and all kinds of stuff. And it was just completely uncalled for. I think that he demonstrated in doing that a lack of empathy, which is one of the key tells of a narcissist. Another thing that I wanted to point out was that even at the end of the meeting, when we were winding down, this guy chose to stick around for Q&A when one of the members invited him and the woman who was also visiting to participate in Q&A and to get their questions answered by some of the other members. He chose to stay. In addition to that, after the woman got her questions answered and logged off, we called for an officers meeting. And this guy was very slow to log off. And he made sure that he took a couple of extra digs and really drove home his point, which was already well made. I think the other thing that demonstrates is how narcissists will hang around and watch to see what the results are of their behavior. What kind of damage was done? How much of a rise did I get out of this person? How'd I do? Did I accomplish my mission? The other thing that I wanted to point out was the devaluation. When I was told that, hey, when I was awarded Best Evaluator, this guy made a big case that I shouldn't have been awarded Best Evaluator. I wasn't that good, and my statement was inappropriate, and I had reacted inappropriately. And the devaluation was real. And that's another sign of a narcissistic individual, is the devaluation of others. So there are lots of things that, even in the Zoom chat, that come up that are telltale signs of narcissistic behavior. And hopefully this helps you to heighten your awareness, but also shows you the value of good relationships and a good support network to have your back when you are faced with these kinds of individuals and this type of behavior. Have you ever dealt with a narcissist in a professional setting? Comment below and share your experience. I'd love to hear it. And it may help somebody else. Hopefully my experience in the meeting the other day helps you as well. Narcissists will behave in very toxic, very abusive, very excessive ways in personal or professional settings. And the end game is still the same: to get supply, to get those reactions, to boost their ego, to dump their emotions or transfer their emotions onto someone else, and to build themselves up by putting someone else down. There's no empathy, there's no care or concern, and they will use any and all tactics or circumstances to launch their attack against you. When you sharpen your discernment and heighten your awareness about this behavior and these types of individuals, then you'll start to build that muscle. Then you'll be able to better handle yourself in these types of situations. You're not alone and you're not crazy. Know who you're dealing with, know who you are. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.